Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the ASCDI's EU conference. My name is Joe Marion. Want to thank you for joining us today. This is the ASCDI's continuing journey around the world. We started earlier this year with a trip to South America, and today we're going to visit the EU. Later in the year, we're going to visit Asia and the US. We've planned today's meeting in Central European time in order to accommodate our European members. When the pandemic hit, the ASCDI board in its wisdom realized that it was a good time to take a look at ourselves. First, we realized that it was more important than ever to keep the lines of communication open with our members. So we scheduled a series of webinars averaging about one a month, and we're continuing to do that this year. Next, we began to look at the practices that our members were adopting around the world. And we found that many of our members were moving to sustainable recycling data protection models, especially in Europe. As an aside, I've told our Asian and our American members that they need to look at what's going on in Europe because that's a blueprint for what's the shape of things to come in their countries. And the next thing ASCDI did at the end of last year is we embraced ITAD. Many of our members are becoming ITADs. And so we created a program called ASCDI ITAD Certify that marries three principles. It takes the ASCDI's ethics process, it takes data protection, and it takes protection of the environment and bundles them all together. And we're calling that ASCDI's ITAD Certify. Now, our ITAD certified program is not meant to take the place of ADISA or eStewards or R2 or any of those. It couples those with the other principles that the ASCDI stands for. Yeah, the world's changed. There were words that we've learned in this last year that I didn't know, and I'm getting old. Zoom, virtual meetings. But our industry's changed too. Like everybody on the planet, we realize that our industry, our association, has a social responsibility to protect. We need to protect people's data. We need to protect the environment. And that's a lot about what we're going to talk about today. There are some core values that the ASCDI embraces that tie in nicely. As I said before, our ethics process is one. It's not ethical for a ITAD to promise to data wipe somebody's data and not do it. It's not ethical for an ITAD to take products and ship them to Ghana to be dumped into landfill. On the other hand, it's not ethical for manufacturers who claim to be green, who talk about the components, inside their products and say we're very green, but yet they prevent the resale of their products. That is not environmentally sound because the most sound environmental principle is putting products back into productive use. And the ASCDI has a goal, has a task to hold these manufacturers and hold our industry responsible for acting in a socially responsible manner. What I'd like to do now is kind of walk through our agenda for the day. Immediately following this introduction, we're going to hear from Todd, CEO of XSI. And we're going to hear from Sean Price, I believe. Sean's in transit. We're going to try to grab Sean from Velez Managed Services. Todd is our chairman of the ASCDI board, and we're really honored to have him here with us today. And Sean is one of our directors. Following that, we're going to hear from Andreas Noble from TCO Development. TCO Certified is probably a logo that you all recognize. For many years, TCO, based in Sweden, has certified CRTs, the old cathode tubes, having to do with the radiation that they emit. More recently, they've adopted certifications having to do with environment, having to do with the components of products. And now they're starting to look at also the manufacturer's social responsibility. And I'll let Andreas talk a little bit more about that. Following Andreas, we have the two sides of one coin. We have TESS and we have Procuri. Now, TESS entered the ITAD, the resale, the technology market from the standpoint of being a recycler. Procuri, on the other hand, has been in our market for a long time, reselling products. but both of them are really now in the same business, but they've entered it from two different ways. So speaking from the two sides of the coins, we're going to have Stephen Graham from TESS, and we're going to have our good friend Matt Jordan from Procuri. Following that, we're going to talk about data erasure. Data wiping regulations around the world differ. Data wiping or data erasure regulations in Europe differ within each country. So we've asked really three of the best. We've asked Blanco, UWipe, and Ultratest to join us to discuss data wiping. And each one of them approaches data wiping from a little bit of different perspective. So we're kind of really honored to have really three of the best data erasure companies joining us today. Following data erasure, we're going to hear from the resellers Green New Deal. We're going to hear from Jan Hoogstraat from Free ICT, and we're going to hear from Astrid Wynn from TechBuyer. And by the way, I want to say just a quick word about Jan. Really honored to have Jan here. Ron has kind of taken up the mantle in Europe to fight for resellers' rights, have the right to repair, and the job he's doing is just tremendous. Jan, we'll hear from you later, but I want to thank you for being here. And Astrid, thank you for all your support and what you're doing. Following that, we're going to have our favorite beverage hour, okay? And I don't want you guys to look like this guy on the screen here, you know, this grumpy guy texting, okay? I want you to look like this guy here, sitting back, drinking a bottle of wine, having a good old time. So the last hour of today, take out some coffee, take out some beer, take out some wine. I'm getting ready with my tequila because I'm starting, as soon as this conference is over today, I start a family vacation for a week. I'm jumping in an RV and driving up to Cincinnati to watch my son's last weekend of baseball. So he's had a 6-year college baseball career and it ends this weekend. So I'm going to celebrate and go up and see Billy play baseball. That's my plan. But let me right now, let's start with our first session and bring Todd Bone on live. Todd.
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
Good, good. Hey, guys, yeah. Todd has moved. You all know Todd probably from living in Atlanta, moved from Atlanta to Texas. So now it's, what time in the morning is it for you, Todd?
Oh, it's 7:07.
Great, great.
Yeah.
And you look so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's great to see you.
I'm sure. Very tired from the moving process, but following Elon Musk out to Texas to try and get a hold of the gold rush here. So as you
That's
will.
Great. That's great.
Joe, hey, I want to thank you because of all these changes that are going on in the industry. I started XSI 30 years ago, and certainly selling products today reselling products today is so much different than it was in the past. So you were very insightful in the way that you saw the industry changing, and we need somebody like yourself to lead us into the new frontier. And thanks for all the hard work that you do. I appreciate it.
Well, Todd, this sounds like a mutual admiration speech, but it goes back to you too, Todd, because you're running a business, you're running a very successful business, but you've devoted a lot of time to ASCDI and helping us move that ball forward. So thank you too, Todd.
Hey, you're welcome. So great lineup today. I think it's very appropriate. I grabbed some of the things that we're dealing with. I'm also on the SIA board, which is about 100 maintenance companies globally. And then I'm one of the founding board members of Repair.org, which we now have legislation in 26 states in the United States. But looking at some of the things that are going on in the industry, the Swiss Gahana proposal to the Basel Convention, which has the efforts that they're trying to make is great in terms of preventing e-scrap from ending up in certain third world countries. But some of it has, in some people's minds, gone a little too far to include product that's getting prepared for reuse as being identified as e-scrap, which is going to make it hard for companies like mine to send ITAD products that might need repair from one country to another country to be repaired at a lower price. So along with that, so we've got a e-scrap export ban is coming before the United States Congress, and national legislators have introduced a restriction to export any end-of-life devices outside of the United States. Once again, you could have an issue. The United States is not a part of the Basel Convention at this point, but these restrictions could hinder operating successfully. And then a couple things going on in the right to repair, which is great for EICPs, doing an excellent job over in EMEA in Europe. And the FTC has now signaled their support for right to repair on a federal level. So now the repair.org is, we've been focused on state legislation. Now we're going to be taking a look at federal legislation due to the FTC's support. And then lastly, along with all the compliance that's going on, there's a research firm called Compliance Standards this week that has announced that they're publishing ratings on customer reviews for the biggest ITAD companies in the world. So now ITAD companies are going to get reviewed based on customer ratings, and this looks like they're going to release multiple reviews per week through the end of August, and then moving forward. So lots of changes going on in the industry. I think that it creates, there might be some obstacles, but a lot of times obstacles create opportunities. And so as my company, we're getting R2 V3 certified. We've been there's some complications going on there too. Siri has not approved any of the 5 auditing companies. So nobody is getting approved for R2 V3 right now until that happens. So, be careful in that area. I think there's going to be some announcements by Siri to that effect, but lots of changes going on in the industry. Grab a hold of, the opportunities that present themselves to you.
Hey, Todd, as somebody who's just gone through the R2 V3 process, if we will, let me explain that real quickly. First of all, mm-hmm. guys, as I mentioned before, there's really 2 components to being a socially responsible ITAD. It's protecting people's data, number one, and it's making sure, and it's protecting the environment. The old R2, it's called R2 2013, took care of the environmental part, but it didn't really take care of the data protection part. R2 V3 now covers the whole gamut, if you will, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
How hard was that? Getting through that process.
Well, it took us longer because we were going to get the earlier version of R2, and they could not get an auditor out to our facility due to COVID by the end of December, which meant that we then had to shift because they stopped certifying companies on the older standard at the end of the year. So we had to shift, and the other thing that was complicated for us was we've been ISO 9001 2015 certified for many years. We integrated that into our R2, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and now 9001 is all integrated into the same documentation, which is better moving forward, but it got very complicated. We had Green Eye partners assist us, which was instrumental. So I definitely recommend them as a company. Very easy to work with, very smart.
And folks, a Green Eye partner is a new member of ASCDI. Yeah. If you guys are interested in getting consulting on becoming a certified ITAD, let me know and I'll put you in touch with the people at Green Eye.
Yeah, the biggest change I think for companies that resell product is you now have to not only grade the equipment, but you also have to produce test reports for the equipment. So now that we're going to be R2 certified, which also covers our maintenance services, any products that we buy from the industry to use for spare parts, we've got to either test ourselves or get a test report from the companies that we buy it from. So I think that our members need to get used to producing test reports when they test the products.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about free ITC. And right to repair. As you guys know, Europe is ahead of the U.S. having to do with the right to repair and the right to resell and those. What's going on with right to repair in the U.S.? How's it looking? How close are we to getting something really done?
Well, we're very close to getting something done in a number of states. We need support right now in New York because we've got bills going through the state legislature and also in California. But look, we're up against John Deere and Apple, who are spending millions of dollars to battle this. And we've got a budget of a couple $100,000 per year. So we need everybody's support. It's the money goes towards lobbyists. We're not paying anybody anything within the organization. It's all volunteers, but we really need every $50 from everybody in your company to support individually and for companies to contribute. This could be the critical year that we get legislation passed. We just need it in one state. And I think that we're going to get the manufacturers to come to the table like they did in the auto industry. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very close, but we need money.
Okay, great. Let me switch gears a little bit now. South America.
Yes.
I know you're very involved in the South American ITAD services market. Mm-hmm. What's going on down there? And by the way, how are the people doing down there?
Yeah, Latin America. Yeah, well, it's been difficult last year. And still, we're getting a lot of countries that are closing down intermittently, which makes it difficult to process ITAD jobs. But Latin America is waking up to IT asset disposition. 7 years ago, when we started doing it there, it was only for global companies that happen to have offices in certain countries there. And now it's starting to expand. So it's getting very active for IT asset disposition. I think resale is increasing, with bad economies, buying products on the open market is always a better deal. Mm-hmm. So I think Latin America has really woken up. There's been a lot of acquisitions done by the larger organizations of companies in Latin America for maintenance. So it's starting to get very active.
Yeah. And I understand Brazil just adopted a data privacy law, very similar to GDPR.
Yeah, and they've also got standards for recycling that are country related. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, compliance is you've got to change your business and get compliant if you want to do well in the new frontier.
Yeah, good. And why? Let me. I'll kind of give you a little bit of a leading question here. But why? Why become an ITAD? And we know it's socially responsible and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some business reasons for it as well.
Well, that because of the laws changing, these big corporations are going to depend on an industry to help guide them through these changes these compliance changes that are going on. Yeah. So that tends to allow for opportunities, but more importantly, the companies that you're selling to, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we've got to have test reports for our products. We're looking for vendors that can provide test reports that are certified. For downstream vendors, we've got to certify them as responsible. And if we can't, then we're not going to do business with them. So you're going to get left out if you don't take hold of these compliances and get certified.
There's also there's one other answer I was hoping to hear from you, but let me throw it at you. Okay. The process. I understand that by becoming an ITAD, you somehow have to change the processes in your company.
Absolutely.
But is it But I understand. I've heard from ITADs that have taken that journey. It's a good thing. They end up with a process that makes
it. Anytime you're measuring things, things are going to get better. Right. So yeah, the processes have changed, but I think it also standardizes the way that you do things within your organization. You typically, with 9001, it's a quality management system. So, we're doing continual improvement. Our clients, who are some of the largest federal system integrators like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Leidos, et cetera, they audit us. And they also look for our quality, our continual improvement programs. On the federal side, there's a new certification coming out that all federal contractors and sub-federal contractors have to be CMMC certified, which is a security standard. They're now putting that standard together this year. I think they've pushed off the requirement of when you can be certified towards the end of this year, but it's a stepping stone over NIST 800, which is the security standard. So if you want to do business with the federal government or any of the prime contractors or any of the subcontractors, now you've got to be compliant with these security standards.
Mm-hmm.
So,
federal government's interesting. In Europe, I understand the EU has mandated that some percentage, I've heard as much as 20% of the products you buy have to be reused, repurposed products.
Yes.
But the U.S. government has
it was almost the opposite, because GSA for many years had it's called a SIN number, and it was 132-9. They've dismantled that, and so you can't sell refurbished equipment through a GSA schedule. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense at all. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, if the government's going to be, working on a circular economy, you've got to be able to sell refurbished products into the government. And there's nothing wrong with these products. Yep. But the manufacturers raise security concerns, and a lot of times the manufacturers have the money to influence and win. So, I don't blame the manufacturers for doing it. They're being competitive as well. I understand it, but we've got to stand up as an association and fight back for our rights.
That's great. Last thing, we have about 4 minutes to go in this session.
Yeah.
How's things going at XSI? What's next on? Let me hear your secret plans for what's going. There's only about 60 people on right now, so you can tell us your secret plans.
So with getting, we've been doing IT asset disposition in Latin America and some in the United States. We've added a lot of personnel related to that. And with an R2 certification, to be honest with you, we can now go after global contracts that we couldn't before. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the plans. We're looking, our next expansion is going to come in Europe. We're currently interviewing people in Europe because some of the global contracts that we've gotten, we've gotten a lot of business in Europe lately. So that's an area that we need to expand. Continuing on with maintenance, we developed a solution for maintaining Cisco equipment, which is pretty unique, but not that difficult. Mm-hmm. And we're continuing to look at other network hardware that some of the prime contractors that we're maintaining in the United States, they're coming to us with 40 different brands of end-of-life equipment that they need assistance with. So we're kind of becoming that character Red in Shawshank Redemption, the guy that knows how to get things right.
Yeah.
So we're expanding in those areas. So right now we see a lot of opportunities, and we're growing very quickly, which is fun.
Super. Well, Todd, thank you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
You bet.
Folks, our next session starts in about 5 minutes at 1:30. So we're going to give you just a few minutes to go do a little bathroom break, go grab some coffee. If you want, feel free to chat with anybody in the program. And then next we'll be hearing from Andreas Noble from TC Development about corporate social responsibility. Todd, thank you again for everything you've done for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. See you all in a few minutes.